15 degrees at 7:17. I have told the story so many times. In a nutshell, it drove me crazy. This was years ago. I went into one of the chain pharmacies. Three of the members of the family had colds, all with different kinds of troubles. And so I went in a very thoughtful way to the area, the cold remedy aisle. There were thousands of remedies there. It's confusing, but do read them carefully. But I did, and I picked up three. I took them to the counter to pay for them, and they wouldn't let me buy them. And I said, what do you mean I can't buy them? Well, you can't buy three. Well, I truly was dumbfounded. This was years ago, before I caught up to the rest of the dumbing down of America, which is what we've allowed to happen, sadly, but that's another story for another time. But the reality was, what they were presuming was the worst of me, that I was probably a meth lab guy or something. Then in the end, I mean, I could have walked out and come right back in and bought the other ones. It's astoundingly stupid. And then you had to sign some paperwork or something. This is over-the-counter cold medicine. Well, it's gotten worse. And here to tell us a little bit about some things that might be happening and that people are not for is the Vice President for Government Affairs at the Consumer Healthcare Products Association, Carlos Gutierrez. Carlos, welcome to the Paul W. Smith Show at WJR. Are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. I couldn't before. I don't think that all the switches were thrown, but here you are, and tell us what's going on. You have found that voters in the majority in Michigan don't want to have to get a prescription for what is now, I guess, over-the-counter drugs. What's going on?
Well, that's right. The ingredient you're talking about is pseudoephedrine, and that's an ingredient found in some of the most popular cough and cold and allergy medications on the market today. It's one of two nasal decongestants approved by the FDA. You probably know them as some of the brand names: Claritin D, Allegra D, Zyrtec D, Mucinex D,
Sudafed.
Exactly. And right now, they're available over the counter, albeit behind the pharmacy counter, but you can buy them without a doctor's prescription. And I guess the question that has been debated in the state of Michigan in recent years is whether that should be available only by a prescription. In other words, having to visit a doctor in order to get that medication.
And the reason is only because of people who abuse these drugs or use them in nefarious ways.
That's exactly right.
That means all of us will be considered bad people, law-breaking, meth lab operators because of the few that really are.
That's right. On occasion, criminals will buy these medications to divert them into making methamphetamine via meth labs. And so, we have always been strongly opposed to that policy. We think it creates far too much hardship for law-abiding consumers just simply seeking, congestion relief. But we wanted to find out what the people of Michigan thought about the issue. So we partnered with the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, their Michigan chapter. We conducted a poll of Michigan residents, and I guess not surprisingly, we found that Michiganders strongly reject a prescription-only policy. In fact, 59% oppose a prescription-only requirement. 69% believe that a prescription-only requirement would negatively impact themselves or their families, and 70% support the existing law. And that's the system that you had to go through when you went to buy your medication, where you've got to give them your ID, you've got to, you're limited to how much you can buy per day and per month. That system is what it is, but at least it allows them to buy it over the counter without having to visit a doctor. And so, we agree with that. We understand the intent of trying to restrict sales. In fact, we support some restrictions. But the fact of the matter is that 90% of the methamphetamine on the street today actually comes from across the border as a finished product from drug cartels. The DEA recently released their threat assessment and said that meth production has been decreasing since 2004, and actually meth labs are at their lowest point in 15 years. So all that being the case, I think, we're in agreement with the people of Michigan that really this should remain over the counter, and any discussion of it moving prescription only really shouldn't be had at this point.
I'm all against dumbing down of America, presuming the bad rather than the good. But be that as it may, it doesn't matter what I say or think. What are the state legislators across the country doing to find an appropriate balance to not put unnecessary burdens on honest consumers?
Well, they're doing actually what Michigan has done. Michigan really has been a leader. It has one of the most comprehensive laws on this issue on the books. It's one of 35 states that has an electronic system currently in place. It's called NPLEX, or the National Precursor Log Exchange. And that it connects all pharmacies, all retailers that sell this product from around the state and across the country. They're all interlinked. So they'll know if you're at a store on one part of town and then you decide to try to go buy more at another part of town, it'll automatically block you from sale. And that system alone, just in 2018, blocked 64,000 boxes from being illegally sold just last year. And nationally, last year it blocked 1.5 million boxes. So I think that's, it's targeting criminals. It's targeting the individuals that might be up to something without encumbering law-abiding consumers such as yourselves or myself. I rely on this stuff, particularly this coming spring. It's March 1st today. We're still dealing with the impact of the winter and, dealing with colds and the flu. But the allergy season is right around the corner. And people really rely on these medications just to get through the day, get to work the next day.
Carlos, quick question. So in Michigan, you say we have this great plan where you get registered, and if you buy one or two or whatever you're allowed to buy at one pharmacy, and you go down the street to another pharmacy, immediately they'll be able to see that you just bought some and you're trying to buy more. What do we do with that information other than say, no, I'm sorry, you can't buy more? Why don't we do something with that information? Why don't we have contact with those people and follow them back to their meth lab and bust them?
Well, that's a great point. And so law enforcement has access to this data. And, Michigan actually took it a step further, and again, a law that we support, and that's if you're going to require a prescription, require it of the people who have committed this crime in the first place. So Michigan actually has a meth offender database, if you will. If you've ever been convicted of a meth crime, you are no longer allowed to buy over the counter. You're put on this list. And so when you go to a store and try to purchase, you will be automatically blocked. And then after that, law enforcement can get alerts. Just all depends on how much information they want, but they can get alerted anytime an individual does try and buy when they shouldn't be buying, or they can look at the individuals that have been blocked in the system. So it does provide a wealth of information to law enforcement as they need it, but again allows those of us that are just trying to seek relief from congestion issues to buy it over the counter.
Carlos, thanks for the heads up. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Carlos Gutierrez, the Vice President for Government Affairs at the Consumer Healthcare Products Association. If you do not want to have to get a prescription for your over-the-counter drugs like Radi or Zyrtec D or Sudafed, or you know what I'm saying. 7:25 at 760 WJR.